was the, I heard she was, and then I heard she wasn't.
Yeah, I think there was an email, but she was asking.
Okay, so this is everybody yet?
Yes. Pardon?
I got 2 packets here, I think.
Yeah, I'll go over that.
Okay.
There's a little,
Extra stuff.
you might have gotten some extra pages, but I just wanted to make sure you had all the pages. I think that wasn't the issue, was missing pages, it was a couple extra pages.
Good evening. I am calling to order the November 2019 meeting of the City of Moorhead Planning Commission and Board of Adjustments. Can we get a roll call, please?
Matt Lysa.
Here.
Jim Haney.
Here.
Timothy Stone.
Present.
Nicole Mattson.
Here.
Ben Hammer.
Here.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Or any amendments to the agenda, I guess?
Move approval to accept the agenda.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda as written, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. As we did not have a quorum in the last meeting, we have to approve 2 months' worth of minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the September 4th, 2019 minutes?
Motion to approve September 4th.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor of approval, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. And can I get a motion to approve the October 2nd meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
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 And all those opposed, please say no. Okay, great. Do we have any citizens to be heard on any issues that are not on the agenda? Okay, doesn't look like it. Okay, we are going to start with our first public hearing tonight. This is a request of 82 and Sunny LLC to rezone 1705 10th Street North from INS Industrial to RLD 2 Residential Low Density 2. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Second.
You would be third at this point.
Oh, sorry.
Any discussion? All those in favor of opening the public hearing, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Robin, can we get background information, please?
Thank you, Chair Mattson. The subject property has been in its current configuration since 1998 and has been zoned institutional since at least 2005. In 2012, the city was offered this leftover parcel to add to the adjacent public works site, but declined to purchase it. In 2013, the applicant purchased it from the original developer of the subdivision just north of there, and now would like to rezone it for single or two-family development. Staff is suggesting the Planning Commission recommend approval. And to date, we have received several public comments, and I'd be happy to read those. So the first comment was from 995 18th Circle North, which I did give you a map of the public comments for this item. So this is it's a separate on your dais there.
Oh, okay, 995, got it.
995 18th Avenue Circle opposes the rezoning, is concerned about disturbance to wildlife, sidewalks, and parking issues on 10th Street North. The second comment was from 989 18th Avenue Circle North, which is Jensen. Stated they enjoy the country feel and the treed setting. Neighbors were against the sidewalk, but the city installed them anyway, so they are concerned that they will not have a voice in this zoning issue. They would prefer, if it was rezoned, that it would be a single-family detached home. The third comment was from 977 18th Avenue Circle North, which is, excuse my pronunciation, Jorskrum. He said he would prefer parking only on the west side of 10th Street North, 18th Avenue Circle, because there are already parking issues on that street. Fourth comment was from 959 18th Avenue Circle North, which was O'Connell. She states that she feels 10th Street between 17th and 18th Avenues is not wide enough to support parking on both sides of the street. She stated there was a snow removal issue last year, and that she missed getting to work a few days because she couldn't get her car through the opening with all the parking. And then the fifth comment was received late on Friday after the packets had been printed, and that was from 1002 17th Avenue North, which is Tweet. Said he was opposed to the rezoning, concerned about adding more density, losing open space and trees, and more cars and parking issues on 10th Street North.
Do any members of the commission have any questions for staff? I guess I do have a question. Can we discuss the parking issue and whether or not, or the on-street parking issue and whether or not that there's anything that can be done about that?
Thank you, Chair Mattson. The parking issue, I think, is a separate issue, and I have forwarded that concern to the engineering department. As for this rezoning, the parking would be, they would require 4 parking spaces on site if they could do up to 2 units, so they could most likely accommodate that in garages. So I don't think an additional housing unit would further affect. Obviously, you're going to have more cars on the street driving, but I think the parking issue is a separate issue because there is a group home on this street, so there is a lot of parking probably by employees or staff of that group home, and then it is actually a very narrow street too, so I think that's separate from the rezoning issue.
Okay, and you have forwarded that issue on to?
Our engineering department, so we're going to be taking a look at that. And the process for that is, that's a city council approval. Right now, 2-sided parking is permitted, and there are occasions where you can pass a resolution to remove 1-sided parking, and then it would be signed so that people would only be able to park on the one side,
Okay.
if that's what the city council would so want.
Okay, so I just want to make sure we're all clear on what the process would be, if that's something that would need to be changed, because we can't do it today, but that doesn't mean it can't be done.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions for Robin? From the city council, or from the commission?
I have just one quick, Robin. So understanding what low density 2 is, and you put an excellent description in here, is there any other variances of a twin home or a stacked duplex that could qualify for this low density 2 CUP?
Thank you. Use variances are not permitted by statute, so the maximum density would be 2 units,
Okay.
whether they do them side by side or stacked.
Okay, thank you.
It is institutional, correct?
What would that mean? The city could put some kind of a facility in there?
Well, I believe it was zoned institutional because it's adjacent to our institutionally zoned public works facility. Institutional includes schools, clinics, any of our government uses, nursing homes, but it is a very small lot, so it would be limited in use probably to some type of housing.
Anybody else up here have any other questions? Okay, is the applicant here, and does the applicant want to speak, address the commission at all? It does not appear to be so. Are there any citizens who wish to be heard for or against the requested action? So you'll need to come up to the podium and give us your name and your address, and you have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak.
My name is Dawn Barrera, and I live at 218 15th Street North in Moorhead. I'm not for or against it, but I would hope that when the planning is done, that traffic is thought about and parking space. We've had a lot of new businesses coming in there, Junkyard and the other restaurant.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. We're not talking about the First Avenue. You're talking about the First Avenue, the 5-story building on First Avenue. We're talking about a different,
Sorry.
so you can come back.
I came in.
It's okay, you,
You're talking about it.
no worries. You can come back when we get to that public hearing.
Okay.
Sure.
I basically said what I wanted.
That's okay. Yeah. Anybody about the 1705 10th Street North conditional use permit request? It does not appear that we have anybody who wants to speak about that. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Okay, can I get a motion on the item?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve based on the criteria set forth by the city staff and to recommend and maintain that the builder follows all rules set forth by city ordinances.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any discussion of the motion? Okay, can I get a vote, please? Are we doing a roll call on this, or we don't need a roll call on this? Okay. Everyone who, now I just got out of sync in my head.
in favor.
All in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed, please say no. Okay, the motion passes. Okay, next up, we are going to talk about the request of Epic Companies for a conditional use permit to exceed maximum building height in MU3 Commercial Mixed Use at 1530 First Avenue North. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
A motion to open.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, say no. Okay. Robin, background information, please.
Thank you, Chair Mattson. First, I would like to point out, there were 2 typos in your report. On page 12, I forgot a condition which should state, the first condition would be 65 feet maximum height would be permitted. And then on page 13 in the table, under the building height analysis, proposed building should show a 61-foot proposed, that's on the plan, the submitted site plan.
Oh, okay, got it.
Okay, so the applicant is proposing a mixed-use building that will be up to 65 feet in height. The building will have a mix of commercial and multifamily units with underground parking and is planned to be sited to the furthest southeast point of the lot along First Avenue North. Historically, this block was used for both single-family on the north side and industrial uses on the south side along First Avenue North. The block was recently split into 2 parcels, with Junkyard Brewery retaining the western portion of this block. On pages 12 and 13 of your memo, we showed you some examples of the proposed built environment, illustrating that this proposed building is of similar scale to what has been recently built across First Avenue North to the south, or excuse me, to the south. I'm getting turned around, on the south side of the First Avenue corridor. And also shown are the existing buildings and homes in this transitional area, just for some perspective. Please note on pages 13 and 14 that conditional use permits for height have some additional exceptions, and those are shown in your packet. We did receive 1 public comment, which is in your memo on the last page, page 15, and that was from one of the properties directly across Second Avenue, and they stated that they do not approve of this building, that there are too many buildings going up or already built that are currently vacant, and they are concerned about increased traffic due to proximity of other businesses and their use of on-street parking in the area. That includes my comments. The applicant is here, so I'm sure they would be happy to answer any additional questions, as would I.
Could you repeat where the public hearing comment came from?
1502 Second Avenue North, which is directly across the street from this project,
Which direction?
to the north. North,
That's a single-family dwelling that's,
yeah, I think it's the northeast property.
okay. All right.
Do any commissioners have any questions for Robin? Once again, I do. I actually did flag the traffic issue as well when I was reading through this. On page 13, the very last bullet point says, during plan review, traffic volumes will be evaluated. Can we talk about what that means? What does it mean? What are we talking about? And what would the result be of that evaluation?
Well, we, for this CUP, we have a very draft plan, so we don't really, this is a proposal of how many multifamily units, how many commercial, how much square footage for commercial. So until they actually give us a full site plan, we won't know what the traffic impact is. I mean, we're thinking in generalized terms that, you know, this is just an addition of more business and more housing. So there will be some increased traffic, but we won't know that until exactly what the exact housing numbers. But that, because it is a condition of the CUP, that's something we would look at.
So we look at it, we get some results, and then what happens? Does that affect the CUP in any way? If it comes back that they're gonna put, like, you know, I don't know, something super, super popular on the main floor that people are gonna flock to from the region, and then lots and lots of people are gonna drive there. If that were to happen, for example, and so the analysis comes back, there's gonna be a lot of extra traffic, what would the impact of that be on this permit?
Well, I think just due to the fact that, you know, we are a built-out city, this is a very older part of town, our streets can handle quite a bit of traffic, so it's gonna, it would have to be, I actually can't think of an example of a use like where you're having, you know, 1,000 trip, you know, one business that's having thousands of trips. We're not gonna have that type of use. It's gonna be retail, or it's gonna be an office, or it's gonna be cafe, you know, those types of uses. So because our streets are already built, we're not building new streets. We have a grid pattern, you know, there's multiple access points. We've looked at this site plan as a draft, and we don't consider that there's gonna be traffic problems. Engineering's looked at it. I mean, those would have come up during our pre-development review. Again, it's a draft plan, but I just can't think of any type of use that would generate those types of volumes where we would have to say that is not the intent of our conditional use, and maybe we would have to go back and ask them to amend it.
Okay.
Which would come back before you.
Sure, thank you, that was my question. Any other questions up here for Robin?
I do have one. Just so I'm clear with this, is this CUP including the building of the building, or are we just simply looking at adding a fifth story?
This
Or is it
is
both?
just for the height,
That's
it's
what I
not
thought.
for the
Okay,
use.
that's what I thought. Okay, that's important to note.
It is. Okay, anybody else for Robin? Okay. If the applicant would like to speak to the commission, now is your moment to be on the TV. Okay. If you want to come up to the podium, we can find out if anybody has any questions up here. And if you would give us your name, please.
I'm Brian Konofsky with Epic Companies.
Okay.
If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I just have one. Brian, thanks for coming, first of all. Do you plan on building to the max height of 65 feet?
As
that
of
the
right
plan?
now,
Okay.
that is just on that interior area where we're going to have some
That
two-story
fifth story.
apartments. Yep.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there any citizens who wish to be heard for or against this permit? If you want to, you can come right up to the podium and give us your name and your address, and you get your 3 minutes.
Hi, Madam Chair and the committee. My name is Anna Pierce. I live in South Moorhead at 4553 13th Street South. I am against the height increase, as there's been a number of other buildings, such as on page 13 of the agenda. The Grove Apartments just got finished, and those are only at 47 feet. Even Block E was only maxed out at 49 feet. To me, the conditional use of an extended height would have to be some sort of community benefit to the residents that would be living at that, not just an increased amount of or higher-end apartments type of thing. I think the increased height also will cause issues with, since there is single-family residential right by there, their heights are also significantly different. So since the majority of the downtown area is already only around that 50-foot mark, I think the increased height would be detrimental or not fit with the rest of the area.
Thank
So,
you for your
thank you.
comment. Anybody else want to come up to the podium and give us your name and address and your comment?
My name's Jerry Barrera. I live at 218 15th Street North. So I live a block north of where they're proposing to put this in. The height, we got enough tall buildings where the train tracks were over there. Those three big apartment buildings were just put in. Most of those are empty. I don't know if we need that up on the north side, and being so close to my house, I have concerns about the height and the added traffic that's going to come, stuff like that. There's already a parking problem down there, and I've called the city police, or the city, and made some comments about that, and I'd like to reiterate some of these today. Junkyard Brewery is there. That building, they were put in that building. They have no parking lot. The restaurant was just put in to their west. They have no parking lot. Their parking lot is the other half of this city block that they're going to build this building on. The streets right there, when Junkyard opens up, cars on both sides, it's one lane in between in there. Cars have to slow down, and we have to move over so that we can let them go by, because you get really close, okay? There's a foot traffic problem on the 15th Street side. I'm concerned with, you're going to put in more businesses on the other side of that, and homes. I don't know how many apartments are going in there. We have traffic problems there. My son does not drive on 15th Street anymore. He comes home on 14th or 16th, because it's a weekly, sometimes a daily thing. We almost hit somebody. People walk out from in between cars. There's cars on both sides of that street. They used to be parking right up to the curb on First Avenue. I've had to stop my vehicle on First Avenue to turn onto 15th Street because there's cars coming out of that parking lot for the brewery, because it's right there. It's one car length off of First Avenue. I have to stop with my vehicle out in First Avenue because there's somebody there.
Can I ask real quick, if we could maybe look at the access point of getting into that parking lot, if that would resolve or help to resolve some of the traffic issues, if the access point into that parking lot were moved, do you think that would help at all?
That access point should be moved up to half the block.
Okay.
And the whole south half of that block should be no parking on that street.
Okay, so that's not something we can address with this permit.
I understand.
But I hear what you're saying.
But my concern is putting up a big building there with first floor commercial. We already have two businesses there that didn't have a parking lot when they were approved. Their foot traffic has to cross a street to get to their business. And those of us who live right there, we like to use that street. I have a 20-foot trailer that I recommend almost always on the back of my truck all summer. I can't come around that corner and have more traffic in that area. It's difficult. And there's other concerns, more, again, with that brewery and everything that's there and that traffic, that this building, I think, is just going to put a strain on our area. I really do.
And I don't want to, I hear everything you're saying, but my understanding is, Robin can correct me if I'm wrong, is that this space is already zoned for this building. And so the only thing we're talking about is how high the building is. The issue of, is there going to be a building or not going to be a building, that's not something that we can adjudicate at this meeting, is my understanding of what we're talking about.
Well, the
now.
traffic really needs to be looked at then.
That
If
is-
you can do that,
I will, why don't you, if you can just hang out until the end of the meeting, you and I will talk at the end, and we'll see
Okay.
what we can work out as far as who to talk to about that. I can't fix it, I'm just a volunteer up here, but I can help you figure out who we need to talk to about that, if
Okay.
that would help.
yeah, that I don't think we need a big tall building over there. We have those buildings across the street that are mostly empty, and they're big and tall too. I mean,
Well, thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk after.
okay.
Anybody else have any comments for or against this conditional use permit?
I have a question.
If you could come up to the podium and say your name and address, please.
All right, so my name's Aaron Junkie. I'm with Junkyard Brewing Company, and appreciate the concerns of our neighbors over here. Nice to meet you folks. My question for Brian, first of all, is,
No.
oh,
Got to address it here?
oh, gotta address you guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Brian the developer. I
Yeah.
thought you were talking to Jerry the neighbor. I'm sorry. Question for
Yep.
Brian the developer, I think, is probably within bounds, so go ahead.
Okay, so my question for Brian is, so the development is on the south end of the lot. The sun is on the south end of the development. And have you kind of calculated with the angle of the sun whether that's going to affect the residences across the street? Is it going to block the sun from those residences or anything like that? And I'll let you take over for a minute.
Yes, we have, and it doesn't reach over to the street.
Perfect. That was my main curiosity, being that we're talking about the height of the building in this case. Like, are these people going to be living in darkness over there? That was my thought, and I figured you guys would have considered that. Can I speak at all to parking issues in that area, or is it irrelevant to this conversation?
Yeah, for the purposes of this conversation, all we can decide is how high the building is, if we're going to let it go higher.
All right, sounds good.
I'd be happy to talk with you and Jerry at the end.
Oh, no, yeah, I'd love to talk to our neighbors after this, if you
Okay.
guys stick around. So that's all I've got.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anybody else for or against this conditional use permit? Doesn't look like it. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Can I get a motion on the item? And then we'll have discussion. Or does anybody want to move something other than what's being proposed?
Madam Chair, I would move that we recommend approval of the conditional use permit to the maximum height at MU3.
Does anybody want to second that motion?
I will second that motion.
Okay, discussion among the commission members. Anybody have anything they'd like to say, or any concerns or issues?
I would just like to say that I welcome the development along First Avenue North, such as Mr. Junkie's place and the restaurant next door, and those apartments and the apartment that is being proposed here. I think it's wonderful that people are investing in our community, and I applaud them and I thank them for what they've done, and I hope more of it happens. Thank you.
I would like to say thank you to Brian and thanks to everyone that came, and we always appreciate public input. I do appreciate the fact that Mr. Junkie brought up the sun issue, because in this part of the country, we don't get enough. So thanks for looking at that and discovering and finding out that that is not going to impact the potential neighbors to the north.
I too would like to just thank everybody for coming. Thank you for your comments. Did I just turn this off? I just turned it off. Thanks everybody for coming. Thank you for your comments. And I I think we do need to address the issues of parking and traffic, especially winter's coming, and we're going to talk about snow removal in a little bit, and those are problems that are perennial here, but they're only going to get worse. I think, I can't remember what the percentages are, but we're supposed to grow this in this metro area by something like another 40% over the next 30 years. That's a crazy, crazy number. It's going to be uncomfortable sometimes for a while as we're growing and expanding and trying to fit all those people in this space. For me personally, I feel like we have to find a way to use the spaces that we have and make the most of them rather than building out. Sometimes we got to build up, in my opinion. And even if that only means, luxury apartments, those are two maybe houses that we didn't build in the farmland because we built in this apartment building instead. So from my point of view, I agree. I think that it seems like a good idea. And I think that I am sympathetic to the issues that have been raised, and I would like to work with you to try to resolve those. We can't do it through this conditional use permit, but we maybe can work something else out. So, anybody else have anything to say up here? Nope. Okay. Can I get a vote on the motion? Everyone, all those in favor of approval of the motion, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, please say no. And the motion passes. Okay, next public hearing, request of City of Moorhead for a conditional use permit to allow excavation of floodway for the North Moorhead project in multiple locations. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion open?
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Robin, any background information?
Thank you, Chair Mattson. This is the item where you might have a couple extra sheets in your packet at the end. Some maps for one of the previous items. The city is requesting a conditional use permit to work in the floodway during the current flood mitigation project in both North Moorhead and on one parcel in South Moorhead, where one home remains in a previous mitigation area. That house will be removed and the levee will be extended. The northern parcels are in the area between the river and Oakport Street North, south of Wall Street down to 50th Avenue North. If you've driven out there lately, they have been starting to remove trees, and there's a house up on blocks about to be moved, and I think they're starting some demolition also of some houses. Excavation in the floodway will stabilize the slope and provide borrow material for the proposed levee. Staff is suggesting that the Planning Commission recommend approval with the conditions listed in your packet. And to date, no comments have been received, and that includes my comments.
Does anyone on the commission have questions for Robin?
And I will also say our floodplain expert is here. If you have questions for her, Andrea Crabtree-Nays is in the audience.
I'm sorry, so the applicant is the City of Moorhead, whoever is representing the City of Moorhead in this instance, if you would like to come up and say anything to address us at the podium, now would be the moment. No takers?
She probably won't.
Okay.
Shy.
Okay, I respect that. No worries. Are there any citizens who wish to be heard either or for or against the requested action? If you do, you need to come up to the podium and say your name and address, please.
Hi.
Hello.
My name's Katie Myram. I live at 1508 52nd and a half Avenue North. And my question is how are they planning to get to the spot where they're planning to put this levee? Are they going to be driving up and down our road? We do live on a private drive, which I don't even know who owns our road, to be honest. I've called the city a couple times and I've gotten different answers. And if they are planning to take the machinery down our road, are they going to repair the road? Last year, we had a city truck get stuck, and I watched the resources of a tractor pull them out, which caused major damage to our road, which never got repaired. So I'm curious to know how that would be fixed and what the plan is to get access to that area?
I think those are great questions. Do we have someone who can answer?
Well, I'm not sure.
Can I
if
ask one more
this-
question too? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
sure.
And I would like to know what they plan to do with, how they plan to get the water out when they do build the levee. We have a lot of standing water. We have a culvert that I believe is getting taken out to build this levee. I was just wondering what the plan was to, for water to be removed down to the.
All right, well, hopefully we have somebody who can help.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Mike Love with Houston Engineering. I'm the engineering consultant doing the design work for the project, so I can answer all those questions.
Okay.
The first one was access along the roads. We actually have restrictions in the contract that do not allow them to take heavy equipment down those private roads. They have to access off of city property on the north and south end of the project. So there is currently utility relocation work that's being done. That's not part of, it's related to our contract, but not under our contract. It's actually being done by Moorhead Public Service. So there is some equipment going in and out of there, but it's not for our construction project. So any damage, I would say, that happens as part of that would have to be restored by like Moorhead Public Service or their sub-consultant. The question about drainage, there will be a new storm line that runs along the inside or the protected side of the levee that collects all the trap drainage. And then that'll be conveyed to the north and south to new outfalls that go to the river. So all that trap drainage will be collected and taken care of as part of the project.
Okay, thank you. Katie, that answered most of your questions, but it doesn't solve your road problem. Is that a fair assessment of? Yeah. Yeah, okay. I'm going to give you my email address, and whoever's listening can have it too. It's nickmatts, NICMATTS @gmail.com. And if you want to follow up with me, we'll help you get that sorted if I can. I'll do what I can. Any other questions from citizens who wish to be heard, or questions or comments?
Actually, I have one. Excuse me. Do we think that this project could span up to 5 years? Is there any kind of plan to hurry this along?
Could you tell me where the 5 years came from? Is it?
Well, that's part of the recommendation.
Oh, that's the length of the.
Length, yeah.
Okay. No, so the construction is, like Robin had mentioned, has started. The completion date, I believe, is like September of next year for all the work. So no, it won't, but I think that's probably just to be safe.
Sure.
They haven't
Okay.
set that long, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions here or there, anywhere? Okay. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any noes? Okay. Can I get a motion on the item?
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion to recommend approval based upon the city staff's recommendations. Number one, proposed project must be completed within 5 years from final approval date. No, number two condition, no excavated material may be permanently stored in the floodway. And three, of course, all permits from the city shall be obtained.
I second that.
Any discussion on the commission? Any comments? Anything we need to chat about up here? No? I keep doing this. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The motion passes. All right. Now, we go to other business. Robin, do we have other business?
We do not have other business.
Right. Reports and information, cul-de-sac ordinance discussion. Okay, who are we hearing from on cul-de-sac ordinance discussion?
Thank you, Chair Mattson. Based on a request from Public Works, we are taking a look at our existing subdivision ordinance as it relates to cul-de-sacs. From a city perspective, cul-de-sacs have been losing favor in subdivision design for some time due to their lack of connectivity for pedestrians and bicyclists, and then also the maintenance issues. However, home builders and home buyers still do like to live on cul-de-sacs. for various reasons. I will have Steve Moore is here, the Public Works Director, to go over. There is a presentation in your packet after my memo. He can go over that, and then we can talk later about some of the other things. And just one other point, this map got cut off in your packet, so I did put one at your places, so you have a complete copy of that. Steve, take it away.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Thanks for your time tonight. Like Robin said, I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Moorhead, and I'm here to just discuss some options and have a discussion about some considerations with cul-de-sacs in the City of Moorhead and how it relates to the challenges with snow and ice removal in the city. So I'll just briefly go through these slides. Really what I want to kind of chat about is that cul-de-sacs are probably our single most difficult challenge when it comes to snow removal. We have about 240 cul-de-sacs and bulbs in the City of Moorhead, which is more than the City of Fargo for a larger population. Probably 80% of our complaints during snow and ice season come from cul-de-sac residents. And the main reason is there's just no place to put the snow in a cul-de-sac, and there's a lot more square yards of snow to move in a cul-de-sac. And also last year, we spent, it takes about, during a major season, if we had a couple events that were in excess of 8 inches, and I called to push the snow into the center of cul-de-sacs, and that took 5 payloaders, 16 hours. And so when you put that together with my inability to operate full operations at 24/7 operations, that means I had guys in the seat moving snow for 16 straight hours, which is pretty taxing, and it reaches the, where it becomes unsafe. So on the next slide, I just put some numbers together, and these are kind of notional. I could pick any street, any cul-de-sac, but I picked my street. I think I picked Jim Haney's street because we live on the same street. But if you look at it, that section in slide number 3, you got about 1,000 square yards of plow surface, and that's just taking half the road into consideration as you're pushing it to one side. In this particular section, there's 7 driveways, 520 feet of curb line. Out of that, there's about 53% available for snow storage because there's spacing between the driveways. You go to the next slide, and this is probably my least favorite cul-de-sac in the city. And it's probably, the folks who live there probably agree as well. It's great in the summer, but not so much in the winter. What we have here is about equivalent amount of square yards of plow surface, but I have 16 driveways packed along 402 feet of curb line, which leaves me about 90 feet of available space to put snow, which is 22% of that curb line. Now, what it also creates, in addition to that, is you can see the sidewalks. So where we're pushing the snow, now I'm pushing it over the sidewalks as well. So then we get issues with having to clear, the residents clearing sidewalks. Slide 5 just shows a quick comparison of those previous 2 slides. The issue is that in a cul-de-sac, you have more volume per linear foot of curb line available for snow. And, with 33% of the space on the curb line compared with a straight street. So just a couple of statistics. Now, the next slide is the bulb example, which, at least in a cul-de-sac, you have some space to push in the center if you have to. It's not preferred, and again, according to my snow and ice control plan, that we only do that at my discretion if we have an event 8 inches or more. That's kind of my trigger point. So if you look at a bulb, you got, 320 square yards of plow surface, 100 square yards per driveway, as you can see on the ends of those driveways. There's 3 driveways along 130 feet of curb line, and it's equivalent to a straight line street as far as looking at snow storage space at 54% along the curb line, but what you have is a lot more snow. And in a bulb, I can't push it to the center because the center of the bulb is the middle of the street. So although it's comparable to this curb length of a straight street, no room for storage in the center. The next slide, slide 7, kind of recaps some of our challenges from the 2018-2019 season, which, as you know, was not a record amounts of overall snowfall, but it was for the month of February, the most snowfall in I believe, history that fell in that month. And we followed that, or previously that January was pretty bad as well. we just couldn't keep up. And, everybody had the same problem. That's why our streets got narrow. I declared pushing to the center of cul-de-sacs on 2 occasions in 2019. First event, we pushed about half of them, and part of that was because we had, some are bigger than others, so I left it up to my operator's discretion on which one should be pushed to the center. We did have a break in the snow event after that event, in snow events after that particular event, and we were able to haul it in-house. But you're talking about 120 cul-de-sacs. It still took us 5 10-hour days to haul that, and it took all my manpower. So what happens during that week is I don't get out and do my daily maintenance. That's when we run the streets again, according to our no parking restrictions, and we try to widen those streets. So we lost, in that particular event, an entire week of daily maintenance route. And, at a cost of $10,000. That's the biggest impact, though. It's not the cost, it's the loss of daily maintenance time. The second event on the next slide was the big one. And again, we pushed about 50% of the cul-de-sacs to the center. This was, I believe, in February, so we kept getting constant snowfall. I didn't have the in-house capability to do the hauling myself because I was pushing snow for future events. So I had to hire contractors. My overall annual budget is $43,000 for contract snow removal. That one event cost $50,000. And then for other hauling during that season, I'm 382% expended in my contract line item, but the one event was my over my entire budget. So the goal of this discussion, and thank you for bearing through all that information, is that we kind of propose some discussion points. So that last slide is I would like some discussion on how we codify cul-de-sacs. And our recommendation for discussion is that if new cul-de-sacs, will be considered if there's no other way to do a through street. It's kind of and we have a new development up in the preserves up in the Oakport neighborhood, and we worked, and thank you to the planning section, they worked their butts off trying to make this happen, but we just couldn't make it happen, so we came up with 2 cul-de-sacs. But there's enough in the Oakport neighborhood, there's enough space, and the lots were big enough. So I have snow storage space. And that kind of goes, if we have to do a cul-de-sac, we'd like to plat and include either a separate lot so I can use it for snow storage, an easement area where, again, designating snow or space for snow storage is key. One, to allow me to maintain, or my crews to maintain the streets safely, and then those residents who live on those cul-de-sacs are happy with the service that I can provide because I have adequate space to place snow. So really, that's what I'd like to propose and discuss this evening.
Great, thank you so much. Commissioners, what questions do we have?
Steve, thanks for coming. I'm one of the fortunate individuals to live at the end of a cul-de-sac. And I have to be honest, that was a massive consideration in the purchase of our current home. Thank you also for clarifying, because as I've lived in this home for 6 years, I've never been able to identify when we push it in the yards and when we pile it. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you my kids love Mount 11th Avenue. Slide down that thing like crazy. So, thank you for that. I guess, so my question is in that commentary, so sorry for that, but in this proposal, with the declining construction or request from builders, as was mentioned earlier, do we think that this needs to be addressed, or do we just follow? Sorry, do we just follow the trends in the building at this time? What is the commission's thoughts on that? Is this something we need to address? What's your opinion, Steve? Obviously,
my opinion is,
in
in 10 years, I'll probably be somewhere where I don't have to worry about this problem, somewhere similar to Costa Rica or something like that. But what I want to leave something, for the future that codifies this, where if the situation changes, we're not back to where I have to, Christy and I have a great relationship in planning between Public Works, and we work together really well. But that's taken a lot of time and a lot of paradigm shifts in how we do things and So I'd like to have it in a way where it doesn't matter who's sitting in, it should be an enduring process. So regardless of whether Steve Moore's sitting in Public Works or Joe Schmo, we want to set ourselves up for success in the future, and this is why I like to kind of put it in code somewhere.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve, for coming. I'm another resident that lives in one of your cul-de-sacs, and from my history, you guys are awesome.
Well, thank
I
you.
have never had a problem in my cul-de-sac. You have had to pile snow before, but again, kids love it. So, but I would support having the conversation about really thinking about how do we make city services more efficient. We need to be thinking about long-term, the extra expense and cost and frustration for city residents if we can be ahead of the curve and plan for it properly so plows can go through, people can get out. It's going to make life living in Moorhead much easier. So I think we certainly need to talk about this and figure out what's the best way, even if it is like your Oakport example. We still have a cul-de-sac, but there's plenty of room to store snow because the city needs to get in and get out and let us all get to work that day.
Yes, thank you.
Steve, what is the criteria? I've observed both in my neighborhood. I've observed both road graders and then front-end loaders come in and push and do all this stuff. And even the front-end loaders, they'll pile it in the front yards.
Yes.
So how do you determine which? Is it just available, equipment availability?
Well, typically, according to the snow plan, all the cul-de-sacs should, in theory, be covered by 4 payloaders with snow pushers on it.
Okay.
However, depending on what'll happen if my motor graders get done pushing their zones, we move assets to the cul-de-sacs to help out. So that's why you may see a payloader with a pusher on it, or you may see a motor grader, as we're reaching into those 12 to 14-hour timeframes.
Okay.
Yep.
I've observed, I think the graders have a little bit of a challenge with that tight turn radius, but.
They do, yeah. That's why the loaders are the preferred asset, yes.
Okay.
So I have a question, and it may not be a question you can answer today, but if we decide, you know what, we like cul-de-sacs and, this is the way it's going to be, and I'm not saying that we are, but hypothetically, what would you and your department need what resources would you need from the city budget, equipment, people to be able to not only clear the cul-de-sacs, but do your daily maintenance? If that is the route that we decide we want to go.
Yeah, well, in a back of the envelope calculation, I would need to be able to, haul the snow or push. If that's the case, where we would have to push many of these to the center and haul. You're talking about 7 dump trucks, 3 payloaders. So really, it's almost unsustainable. To keep that steady state. So I would say at least, a 50 to 60% increase in manpower and equipment.
And I don't know what your budget is, so can you just ballpark that for me?
Well, it's kind of embedded in my street and alley budget, which, spans across the seasons, but, you're talking about, I have full-time FTEs, 12 in streets, but I augment with a couple golf course employees. So, 7 bodies, you're talking about, $500,000 in salary and benefits, and then, another $100,000 in fuel and equipment and maintenance costs. That's just operational, and then a capital investment of machines and those kinds of things, so.
So we're talking millions of dollars.
It would, it's, yes.
Yes.
It's very, if I spend 1 million, 1.2 million for snow removal, it'll be at least a 60% increase on that.
Okay.
Easy.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure we know what we're balancing.
Yes.
Which is a lot more money and people and, hiring and all that expense versus fewer cul-de-sacs. Is what it sounds like to me. That's kind of the decision-making, because I don't think again, going back to my earlier comment of like the growth that we're going to experience, what we already are experiencing in this metro. I think I calculated 6 people moved to this metro area every day last year. I don't know how many of those people moved into Moorhead city limits, not 6, but people are moving here. They're going to keep moving here for the next 20 plus years. This is not an issue that's going to get easier to deal with. And so, given the population increase, I think this is something, I think you're right to want to get this sorted out sooner rather than later. So I would support whatever you think you need to do to get your job done. I think you're the expert on this, and if you think that this is what we need to do, then that would be my suggestion, as well, as that we listen to the person who does the job.
Thank you.
And Chair Mattson, I did want to stress that we're not interested in banning cul-de-sacs
Right.
altogether.
Yeah.
It's kind of you can do a cul-de-sac, but if you do a
Right.
cul-de-sac, we need you to provide some area. Because right now, it's very, our cul-de-sac regulations are very similar to the rest of the metro. They're very, they don't require this much boulevard space, this much easement space. Snow storage is not considered, which is typical in like very general zoning and subdivision ordinances. So we want to provide options. So if you really, if we can't talk you out of a cul-de-sac, because on the planning side, we like the connectivity for the bikes and the pedestrians, if you must, because that's what your builder or your buyers want, then we would like you to provide this space for the snow storage.
Typically, yeah, and I would just, if I can make a
Sure,
comment, I was going to say, I appreciate you coming out, Steve, appreciate your comments and the points you're making, and almost, hearing Robin, I basically almost agree. I don't see cul-de-sacs going away because most home buyers are buying because they have children. Cul-de-sacs are pretty much natural surveillance. People who live in them, if you see a foreign car, most times people are paying attention because that person shouldn't be in that cul-de-sac, or if somebody's walking through there that don't have no reason to be in the dead-end cul-de-sac, they're not going to be there. But I agree with Robin that you're pointing this out, and I agree that I don't think there's any regulation, to my knowledge, in planning for a snow pile. But there are regulations for, obviously fire is important. You got to have a certain amount of distance and turnaround and clearance for fire trucks. But I think that's a good point, because that's something that even as a planner, we take into consideration when you're doing multifamily housing and strip malls and stuff like that. You got to consider where you're going to put the snow pile. But especially like the snow events we had last winter, it was pretty. I've been in the area 18 years, and that was the first time I experienced a winter like that. If it would have been winter like that when I first came here, I would have left the next day. I would not have stuck around 18 years. But I agree. I think there probably should be some type of soft ordinance that addresses how you guys handle the snow removal. So I agree.
And I agree with that. I think that if we foster a city and a planning and a public works department that strives to work more with builders to help them understand everything that's involved, rather than allowing them to just kind of do what they want, I would definitely support that. That would be good.
So I would just say, kind of our next steps are, we did reach out to the Home Builders Association, so we didn't get any comments back, but we're still going to continue to work with them to see what they, think of these ideas. And, at some point next year, hopefully we'll be able to bring some language to start the ordinance process.
Great. Commissioner Hammer has to go, so is there anything else we need to sort out before we lose our?
I just had one other item. It's not really an addition to the agenda, but I just wanted to make you aware. We did release our comprehensive plan update RFP on the 23rd, and those will be due on December 9th.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, let's go.